All right, seems like everyone's here. Is everyone's here? Right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I welcome everyone standing here today to the Interfaculty Debate Competition on the topic, This House Regrets the Entries of Transgender in Sports. I am Selena, and I will be acting as your moderator as well as your judge for today's debate session. Before we start today's debate, I would like to introduce our debate teams who will be competing today. Let's welcome the government and opposition team. The government team will be supporting today's motion, while the opposition team will be rejecting the motion given. The government team consists of Amira as the Prime Minister, Adam as the Deputy Minister, and Sri as the government whip. Moving on to the opposition team, we have Sugan as leader of opposition, Kavya as deputy leader of opposition, and lastly, Sugan as opposition whip. Before we start, I would like to remind you of some rules that we need to follow during this debate. Each speaker will have 7 minutes to deliver their speech. You may not interrupt your opponent when they are speaking except for points of information during seat time. Point of information allowed after the first minute and before the last minute. Be mindful of your words and be polite as you speak. Each speaker has a maximum time of 30 seconds to finish their sentences. Failure to do so will have your team's mark deducted. To give out POI, make sure to turn on your camera and click the raised hand button. The flow of the debate is as such. The Prime Minister will begin her speech, followed by the Leader of Opposition. Then the Deputy Prime Minister will continue the speech, followed by the Deputy Leader of Opposition. The government whip will begin her speech right after, and lastly, the first or second speaker of each team will conclude the debate by giving out the replying speech. Before we begin, I'd like to remind each speaker to state how they'd like to receive POI in the chat box or mic. POI in the chat box means debater who wants to ask just write POI in the chat box, not the question. Questions must be asked verbally. We will now begin today's debate on motion This House Regret the Entries of Transgenders in Sport. Let's welcome the Prime Minister to deliver her speech.
All right, just give me a minute.
All right, Azmin, be ready with the timer.
Before that, I would like to say that for POI, please just say it out loud because I will not be able to look at the chat box while I'm doing my speech. Okay, so I'll be starting in 3. Before that, I am audible, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll be starting at 3, 2, 1. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We have no room in our hearts for hatred and frankly not have time for tolerance. Assalamualaikum and a very good day. I bid to the wise judge Selina, my loyal teammates Adam and Suri, fellow opposition side, and everyone else in this very room. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this debate. Welcome from this side of the house where I, as the Prime Minister, strongly support today's motion, which is this house regrets the entries of transgender in sports because we believe in gender equality, because we believe in gender equality, we believe in gender equality and equal rights for everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, the reality that this point of view is debatable and that there are continuing conversations concerning transgender inclusion in sports and that should be noted. And it is quite complicated to decide whether transgender people should be permitted to engage in sports in accordance with their own gender identity, or if there should be additional rules or requirements. Well, everyone frequently raises this issue. In fact, we are debating this today, and it alleged advantages and even disadvantages in competitive sports. Proponents of transgender inclusion frequently advocate for equal rights and opportunities. And as we know, by area, organizations, and sport, public perception and the laws governing transgender athletes involved in sports can differ. And therefore, we do believe in transgender athletes' rights and experiences must be taken into account when discussing this issue, as well as other people's concerns and points of view. Before I continue with my speech, allow me to give you a preview of what I am going to do in my speech first, so you guys will have a crystal clear view of it. So first, I'm going to define the motion today so that everyone can have a view towards it. And then I'm going to state my points. And furthermore, we have already structured our case as follows. I, as the first speaker, will talk about basically kind of like women's rights. And then the next speaker, Adam, will elaborate furthermore on the effects and how we counter these arguments. Then the third speaker, Sri, will do the rebuttals. So moving on to the defining arena. Ladies and gentlemen, how would I define today's motion? This house regrets the entries of transgender in sport. So regret, what do we talk about regret here? To feel sore or remorseful. And basically, we're trying to correct the wrongdoings. We already feel guilty as it is for letting these people in. So entries, an act of coming in. Basically, you're entering it. Transgender people. So there are many ways to define this, ladies and gentlemen. Transgender people are basically people whose gender identity, their gender expression or behavior, remember, gender identity, gender expression or behavior that does not conform to that typically associated with the sex to which they are assigned at birth. And ladies and gentlemen, so far in this earth, there are no longer two genders, ladies and gentlemen. We have over 72 genders that exist. So basically you can, I guess, transform into what your heart desire at this current moment. So then sports, an activity involving physical exertion, a skill in which individual or teams compete against one another or others for entertainment. And this would include indoors and outdoors, ladies and gentlemen. So the main reason why we support today's motion, it is because we want to protect women's fairness in sports, basically. Equality between men and women, ladies and gentlemen, have existed when both sexes are able to share equally in the distribution of power and influence. And they have equal opportunities for financial independence, for work or through settling up businesses, enjoy equal access to education, opportunity to develop personal ambitions, interests, and in this specific case right now, sports. Women, ladies and gentlemen, have spent so much time since the very beginning of our existence fighting for their rights. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know how difficult it is to be a woman? Surely the ladies here would understand. And we in fact know well very hard that if the men work hard, we women work twice as harder in order for what? To gain our spot, to gain our desire to work and everything. Before, we couldn't even have a job and join any sort of masculine stuff. And now we finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity to join them. We can join sports again. But then again, look what has happened now, ladies and gentlemen. Unfair, literally unfair. The main reason why transgender individuals, in my opinion, should not be allowed to compete in women's sports is that they have an obvious physical advantage over cisgender athletes. If you do not understand what cisgender means, is that women who are assigned as women from they were born. They were born with woman sex, ladies and gentlemen. Those who transition from male to female go through hormonal therapy. We all know that. This will reduce their muscle mass or strength, and a transgender woman who was once a male athlete could actually easily surpass the abilities of most female athletes, thereby dominating a sport that was once females, and it's making it difficult for them to win. This would be detrimental to the spirit of the competition and could discourage female athletes from participating in sports altogether. Ladies and gentlemen, protecting women's sports, fairness, participation of women's sports. Next, we're going to have the safety concern. Allowing transgender individuals to compete according to their gender identity could increase the risk of injury to cisgender athletes, not to mention the sexual harassment that could occur. Sure, you could talk about how trans people have changed their values. No, they are changed people. But can you confirm this can be avoided? Can you? So back to safety. Sports, they are physical and many can cause injuries if the biological male were to compete against a biological female. Lastly, it is important to note that allowing transgender individuals to compete in women's sport could create a slippery slope that leads to pandering to political correctness. In conclusion, while we could be accepting transgender individuals and support their right to express their gender identity in which whatever they choose, but we must also consider the rights and safety of cisgender female athletes. Allowing transgender individuals to compete in women's sports could create an unfair playing field and erode the spirit of competition. Before I end my speech, I would like to again reinstate our stand. We believe in equal rights, but for everyone, and that is why today's motion should be accepted. I rest my case.
All right, thank you for your speech. Now we will hear from the leader of opposition. So you may start your speech.
Yeah, give me a minute. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and beloved judge. Today, before I start my argument, I would like to provide our house's stance that we do not agree with the motion today. We want to prove that transgenders or the participation of transgender in sports do not bring disadvantages, but it is more equal and gives equal opportunities to them to shine. Before I would go to my first argument, I would like to review the Prime Minister's points. First off, I remember her saying that transgender is considered a gender as well. And we all know that all genders need equality, right? Therefore, we should also consider equality in transgender as well. They should not be shunned from the society because they do not have the typical gender as male and female. No, they should have the proper rights as well because, as you said, they are a gender. Therefore, they should not be opposed or should not be refrained from joining the society, especially in activities that a normal gender would contribute or join in. First off, and secondly, I would like to review the point that the Prime Minister also said that women's rights. Yes, I would agree that women's rights, as for many years, women have been under constant pressure and injustice. They do not have proper workings and do not have proper opportunities. And also, this could be said the otherwise for this transgender community as well. They have been existed since early days, but they have never been given the opportunity to show and shine themselves, to propose themselves, to express themselves, or given proper opportunities in working environments, even though they do not have any bad moral values. Like our Prime Minister said as well, they do not have any bad intentions, but just because they are transgenders, they do not have the advantage to join into society's normal day-to-day stuff. And third is she talked about women's rights. I mean, the second point as well. And I also like to point out that she said that transgenders do not, they do, even though they go to hormonal therapy, they do not lose their muscle mass, and the scientific reason behind this will be my first argument for today. First off, transgenders are becoming transgenders by going through hormonal therapy, by reducing the test. For an example, like she said about women, right? Therefore, a man must become into a woman or a trans woman, and they must reduce the testosterone levels in their body, right? I presume we all do. I mean, do know this fact. Um, Therefore, this transgender hormonal therapy must work. If not, it wouldn't be um, a worldwide recognized therapy, right? It should work. If it wouldn't work, then why would they have a therapy based on changing someone's gender? Therefore, um, there is a study reported that um, a hormonal therapy for transgenders does indeed reduce skeletal mass and bone density, and because the the skeletal mass is directly proportional to the number of hemoglobin levels we have. And we all know that sports, as the previous Prime Minister mentioned, that sports includes vigorous activities. Therefore, in vigorous activities, as we all know, that we need a lot of oxygen supply, we need a lot of movement. Therefore, sorry, I'm using a lot of therefore, I'm sorry. But next up is I want to say that in order for physical activities, we need a lot of oxygen in our body. And we all know that men, and actually male, have more hemoglobins in their body. This is a biological fact. But when men transitions into a transgender, they lose all this hemoglobin products by going through hormonal therapy. Since the hormonal therapy reduces the testosterone level, and testosterone levels are tied to the the hemoglobin levels are tied, or the red blood cells are tied to the testosterone levels. Since there's a reduction on testosterone levels, the production of hemoglobin levels and the red blood cells are also reduced. Therefore, they could be say that it is equal to the cisgender or cis woman gender. Therefore, there is no subjected advantage transgender have over the cisgender. This is also proved by many studies and is also accepted by the World Athletes Committee. Therefore, I see no reason why transgenders do not or cannot join sports or national sports. And this has also been allowed in the first Olympic, where the transgender was allowed in 2004. The first time or the first year that transgenders were allowed to use, and this was regulation used and are still being used. And therefore, there won't be a simple reason, or there won't be a proper scientific reason they would not be doing this. And next for, as you said that we should have proper guidelines. Yes, we should, and we already do have proper guidelines for transgenders joining our games or sports. For an example, in the Olympics, in order for transgenders to join a normal sports, for an example, you talked about women rights, right, and women in sports. So let's give you an example in women. A transgender, in order for a trans woman to join a women's sport, they should always make sure that their regulations, at least in the testosterone level, should be below 2.5 moles or per liter for 2 years. This makes sure that the testosterone levels are under control or under the bar that's for the cis woman. This makes sure, as I previously said, the hemoglobin levels are managed and there are no more increased muscle mass as previously as the Prime Minister proposed, that they do not have decrease in muscle mass and stuff. This adequate 2 years is adequate enough for the reduction of muscle mass and skeletal mass. Therefore, this is a provided evidence, and we do have statistics to prove it for you. And other than that, they also say that it's not fair for the transgender, for the women to not, for leaving transgenders competing in sports. I say it is unfair for the transgenders as well, as I previously said, because this scientific reasons that they all make up that there is no skeletal mass, or that trans women are way more stronger than women, is a myth created by transphobes, or I will say it's a more misogynic and transphobic idea or mindset, where that we should eradicate as soon as possible in order to prevent any wars or upcoming riots. And next up, I also like to talk about, also like to talk about the recent Tokyo Games that was happened in Tokyo, where they also allowed the regulations to be fulfilled, which was latest in 2018. Therefore, it is explained that these regulations are concluded, and therefore, I would like to ending my speech. I would like to reaffirm our house's stance that we do not support the we do support the transgenders athletes' participation in sports. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, thank you for the wise speech. Now let's hear from the Deputy Prime Minister. You have 7 minutes to present your case.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, honorable opponents, and fellow debaters, I stand before you as the second speaker on the supporting side of the motion, which is this House regrets the entries of transgender individuals in sports. And I would like to reaffirm our stance, which is we believe in equality for all and respecting one's right. So, first and foremost, me as the second speaker or the Deputy Prime Minister, I would rebuke the leader of opposition, and then I'll present my own points. So first of all, to rebuke the leader of opposition, I would like to recognize his research on terms of all these procedures and guidelines. I props on him to that for knowing all this, but I would like to ask you something. If it's on the third person view, right? Like, yes, we know about all these guidelines and all these tests that they have to go through, these athletes have to go through, but from the third person eyes, right, it's a bit different. It's a bit odd for them, right? Like, even though it is quote unquote fair for them, it is not all people deem it to be fair for the athletes. Like, for example, if you say that there's proven statistic that all the hemoglobins and all the test results is making them fair and equal in the field. But why is the result nowadays, such as Leah Thomas, a swimmer that wins the state championship in the United States, she proven herself. She, which originally is a he, when she was a he, when she didn't recognize as a transgender at the time, she didn't manage to go even in the top 60 in the ranking of swimmers in the state championship in the United States. But when she suddenly turns into a transgender, she won the NCAA championship in the United States, which means that even though, yeah, there's like all these regulatory and all these guidelines they have to go through, at certain level, transgenders still dominate over women. And I would like to say that when you compare transgender to an original or biologically original female, they train differently because first and foremost, transgender people have different situation compared to female. Like the original female, transgender people doesn't experience menstruation. They didn't experience a lot of like what original experience. First and foremost, yeah, even though it's out of topic, they would not be able to experience pregnancy, right? So different situation for them. So it's mean like if it's a different situation, we should treat them differently as well. That's the thing. So it can be a fair and equal. So let's get to my point, which is the impact on women's sport by letting the transgender enter this field. So by making them, like what I said, by making them enter this field of sports, it will make the erosion of opportunities for cisgender female athletes. And by allowing them to compete in this women's sports categories, it can lead to a concerning scenario where cisgender female athletes find themselves at a disadvantage, like what I said. Like, just consider this, right? If a transgender consistently outperforms cisgender women in various sports, it may result in reduced scholarship opportunities and recognition for cisgender female athletes. We don't want that. Like what my prime minister stated, women already have already a lot of issues and a lot of difficulty enough. So just imagine a young, like talented female athlete who has dedicated their life for her to enter the field of sport. She deserves a level playing field and the opportunity to shine. But if she constantly faces competition from transgender women with potential physical advantages, even though, yeah, you said but we don't know in the field. Like there's a lot of different factors that you have to count in, and and she her chances of success diminish, and this discouragement could ultimately deter young girls from pursuing this career in the first place. And after, like nowadays, when we see the transgender woman keeps on breaking this record, it will just ruin the preservation of women's sports records. And sports that already have made incredible records over the years with numerous records and achievements, that record inspired the future generation, like what I said. And by allowing these transgender individuals to compete in women's categories without even considering the potential physical advantages that they may have raised, rewriting the record books, like what I said, the Thomas Liu, even now, like in 2020 Olympic, there's a new record broken by a transgender weightlifter. Those records should be for women and women's only, original like women. And this record represents the pinnacle of female athletic achievement. Female athletic achievement. So, and they should not be diluted or replaced by individuals who, due to their biological sex, may have distinct physical advantages. Okay, moving on to another point of mine, which is a potential for doping accusation. Okay, let's turn our attention to the potential of doping accusation. And it is analogous to performance enhancing substances like steroids and a lot of like performance enhancing drugs. And like some opponents will argue that the advantages transgender may have due to their male biology are akin to performance enhancing substances, which improve their performance in the sports. And this is a grave concern for sure, because it can lead to accusation of like cheating and a loss of trust in the fairness of sports competition. And obviously, it would be unfair for our female athletes as well. Like what I said, it is a different situation. It is unfair for them. And like what my prime minister said, that it is we need a clear guideline to ensure this completely fair. It's not that we're saying no forever, but we regret that it is happening right now. So to summarize my point, I would still like to support this motion by stating that this house believes that this house regrets the interest of transgender in sports, and our stance is we believe equality for all and respecting one's rights. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the insightful speech from the Deputy Leader of Opposition. We will now welcome the government. No, okay. We will now hear the speech of the Deputy Leader of Opposition. You have 7 minutes to present your case.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Good morning to the judge and the government house, and thank you to the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister from the government house. I would like to start by mentioning our motion for today, that is, this house, the government house regrets that the entries of transgender in sports, and the opposition do not disagree with it. We do not support the motion for today. And what I'll be doing in my speech is I will be rebutting the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister's arguments, and I will be giving my own 2 additional arguments, adding to what my leader of opposition said. So I start by saying that I totally respect what the Prime Minister from the government house said. They said that they do believe in equality, that transgender deserve equality as well. And the Deputy Prime Minister said that as well. But I would like to rebut by saying that they stated that they have to go through all these procedures. And for example, they said that it makes the transgender win more. So there's an inequality there, especially when trans men they transition into women, and you say that they perform way better, and you said that they were originally a male who wasn't able to perform better in their session. After they transition, they are able to perform better. So that's exactly what we are trying to prove here. They realize that they do not belong there, so which equals to them transitioning into a woman, and they are able to prove that they deserve more chance in what they feel like they are able to succeed in, which proves our point today. And for the point where they say that they do not experience menstruation, they actually do after they go through the hormonal therapy. They were able to reduce their testosterone level, they are able to go through menstruation, and if they want, they are able to there are multiple, as we all know, there are multiple procedures to get them pregnant as well. I do not even have to mention. And they also stated that they are taking away the chances that cisgender women have when they're performing sports. But the real question is, how often does this happen? Do they win all the time? Do we hear that every single competition where there's a transgender woman participated, do they win every single time? Which proves that cisgender women and transgender women have the same amount of, abilities, the same amount of uh, um, requirements that are able to make them win. Now that I've rebutted them, I would like to go to my first argument for today, which is um, the reason why we do not support the motion today is that because transgender actually face tremendous amount of discrimination. I would like to accept the POI by the WAPE Minister.
Hi, thank you for accepting my POI. Just to state important section, you said that the amount of cis women in succession is equivalent to or same as trans women. I would like to differ the factor because what you said was absolutely wrong. When my DPM actually stated that trans women are doing much more better than their in the women's field compared to their own field. I'm not telling that they're winning everything, but they're doing much more better here, which excludes a good proportion amount of natural or biological women. Thank you.
Thank you. But that's exactly what we are trying to prove. They are performing better. Why are they performing better? Because they realize their ability as you see, the idea of transgender is that they identify themselves as the opposite gender than what they were born as. So they realize that they transition into whatever they prefer and they win. So I find that totally fair as the opposition house. And moving on to my first argument, this transgender face tremendous amount of discrimination. This has been proven from real life evidence where, based on an interview with a trans female athlete who plays football, who is Paula, when she was interviewed, she stated that she had overcome so many amount of discrimination, especially through social media, and where she got hatred from left, right, and center. The hate were coming from people who were just passing by. And another discrimination that they also face is they are forced to prove certain things that go out of their comfort zone. For example, the Florida high school, they force to trans athletes to prove that they can menstruate, so in order for them to participate in sports. And they are forced to give out private information on when did they first get their period, how often do they get their period, and stuff that are quite uncomfortable for them to prove. I feel like that's totally unfair for them. Like, why do they have to go to this extent to prove just that to prove that they are able to participate in sports? My second argument is that this letting transgender athletes take part in sports, they are giving out inspiration to other transgenders. For example, Chris Mosier, who I publicly identified as a trans man in 2010, actually became the first American to represent the United States in international competition. So in this case, I feel like we should only be proud that transgender are able to perform and until the point where they are able to represent a whole country. So the question is that this has been happening since 2010. Do note that. And why is it a big matter of deal that only it has become a big deal in 21st century? Before ending, I would like to reinstate our stand that we do not support the motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the thoughtful speech. We will now welcome the government whip to speak.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. A very good morning to the diligent judges, my fellow teammates of the government, and to the opposition team. My name is Sri Bardhan. I'm coming from the government as the Whip Minister. Today, I would like to reinstate our motion, which is this House regrets the entries of transgender in sport, which I totally agree. Why? Because I believe that gender equality is for all, and not only specifically for the ones who think that they are considered in different genders. To start off, as my responsibility as a Whip Minister, I will be supporting my own government's points, and I will be rebutting the opposition's points as well. To start off with my own government's points from my Prime Minister, she stated that to protect the women's equality sports in fairness in all needs. Why did she say so? Because women have been working for this right since the start of time. Well, this is also stated by our opposition's lead as well. But what they do not understand is women are less of or in the lower hands of brute strength and in energy. So why is transgenders coming into their sports and winning stuff? You have to understand that women are not physically gifted as biological males. I repeat, women are not gifted as biological males because biological males uphold a certain amount of strength. Despite what the blood work or the paperwork shows, their strength is much more on the upper level. On the second point, when my Prime Minister also speak that there could be also the possibilities of having sexual exploitation. Just to give you an example, if there's a transgender woman who was born as a male but actually enters into a female sports and they're actually training in the one circular environment, how do you think they are going to get into the locker room? To see each other, to handle on each other, or even in opposition sports. For example, rugby, which I do not have the knowledge on rugby so much because I'm not a rugby player myself. Well, let me state this. I have watched a few games myself. There are a lot of tacklings going on. How about, can we allow actually a male to go and tackle down a female to hold her hips or any other private places per se? Can we? No. But how is it accepted when they are considered or identified as transgender just because they went through a minor or certain medical procedures, or even to say that discrimination? This does not support say so. If it's your own family members, are you willing to give up or to say that, okay, girl, you can go ahead and fight and go against this boxing match against a man who was born as a man, now he's identified as a woman? You don't see Mike Tyson going against a woman, right? It's the same concept. So to second up, my Deputy Prime Minister Adam also rebutted when he said requirements aside from the leader who stated that all the requirements for transgender has to go through all the blood work, the testosterone levels, the hemoglobin levels, as what you said, all scientific. I will come back to you because there are a few factual mistakes I have to note by. All the requirements aside, they are biological males. And biological females have a downfall in it. Why do you say so? Because not all biological females dependent or they come from a good or well-being families. You understand some of them need to apply for scholarships or they have an upper hand in scholarships as well. What if these scholarships has been dragged down or pulled away from them just for the fact that they are losing towards a male, born biological male? And these records that is stated in no matter what sports, it could be a sprint, it could be a swimming competition, every single thing. There are potential record breaking just because there's a male entering in the female competition. You don't see that in every other sports, but just because you're identified as transgender, why is that allowed to? Okay. And on the third point, when my Deputy Prime Minister also stated that potential drug accusation. So in usage of drug enhancements, for example, to lower testosterone or for female to increase the testosterone, are we actually letting drugs to be allowed in sports right now or nowadays? This is actually opening a gateway in that. With that said, I'll come to the rebuttation. For the leader of the opposition, he said that transgender have their rights and transgender were not given rights as women as well. They had to work for them. Then they could live in their own line. If they are born as a biological male, why not go and compete in the biological male field? Just because you feel as a female doesn't mean you have to go to a female. You can work in your own line. You can have your sports in your own line. Why do you need to take medical procedure in order to go there? Just because you feel so. And these medical procedures that you say that will lower testosterone levels is only on paper. Have you considered on the muscle density mass? Have you considered on the progression report of the muscle skeletal enhancements, which they'll go through a static force inside your muscle to see how dense your muscle density is? Have you done that? No, only on paperwork. Anyone can do a paperwork, but does not mean there's necessarily mean they are coming under requirements. And when you stated that skeletal muscle is directly proportional to hemoglobin, no. Low hemoglobin. Yes.
Sorry. Just now you said that we do not have the proper facts to confirm that we do not have the increase of the loss of muscle mass, right? My question is, do you have the statistics? I would like to know if you do actually have statistics instead of paperwork as well. Thanks.
Okay. If you want to talk about statistics, I can't provide you statistics because you did not start with statistics. You stated the facts. I'm also coming down with the facts. Okay. You stated the facts. I come down with facts. When you stated low HB and is low energy amount, low HB means low energy, not because of low skeletal amounts. Okay. And the advantage is withdrawn for males as well. Well, there's no proven studies. It only shows in blood work. You can see the performance out there. A lot of athletes are outperforming the rightful or biological females out there. And when you say 2.5 liters per blood, right? I'd like to recorrect you. There's only 10 nanomoles per liter. Check your facts, please. And when the deputy said transgender people should able to perform well when they feel so. So in order to win, they can choose to take drugs and go into a certain amount of sports. So I feel like I'm Superman. Should I take the anabolic steroids and go into the bodybuilding competition? No, as well. So this is happening since 2010. Then why are we debating right now? With this, I take my stance that equality is all for all. And this motion stated that we regret as this government in allowing transgender into sports. I rest my case. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the speech. We will now hear the speech from the opposition whip.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay, I will start my page in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. As the whip, as the opposition whip, I would like to rebut the the government's points first before strengthening my points. Okay. In the rebutting, I know the first Prime Minister said that they talked about women's rights, basically, which I've already explained my first point, that yes, I agree with the women's rights. I completely agree. And I'm also supporting the women's rights. But at the same time, we're ignoring the transgenders as well. They also identify as a gender, as the Prime Minister has already agreed. They should be equal. And we know that transgender, there are two types, there's trans male and trans female. So the female, we do identify as a female gender, therefore they should be let into the sports. Yes, I agree. It might be unfair to the women. Yes, I agree. And that's why we have regulations. And thank you for correcting my rules on the 2.5 nmol. Yes, it was decreased to 10 mol at least 12 months prior, and before it was 2.5 for 2 years. Therefore, it is decreased, but it is considerably low. Therefore, it proves that we do not need to wait for 2 years. Instead, we could just wait for 12 months before joining a competition with just 10 and little moles of testosterone in the transgender's body. Next up, the second speaker also, the Deputy Prime Minister also stated that it is unfair for the women that do not get chances, scholarships and stuff. There, I would like to remind you again, transgenders do not have an identity of themselves. They are always shunned upon. As I previously said, that they do not have a representation, a proper representation. They're not respected as a proper gender. Therefore, they are even more avoided of scholarship opportunities than female. But I do not say that women are not being treated unequally by the scholarship. Yes, I agree with women's rights as well. But that we should also consider transgenders are not being treated equally as well. This gives them a chance. It gives them opportunity to go. And also, as the whip mentioned about rugby, I would like to remind that rugby is only, let's say, the participation of a trans man in women's rugby is only allowed when the trans man has been transitioned into a man has only transitioned to a trans woman before the male puberty. Therefore, it is allowed according to the Rugby World Organization. This removes the puberty or the growth of a proper male before he transitions into a trans woman. Therefore, it avoids any physical advantages and also removes the barriers. But I still agree that it is quite uncomfortable for women to play with transgenders. And next up, as you talked about dopes, I don't understand about dopes. So you said about drugs. I'm not very clear about your point. You said about drugs, but the thing is, testosterone levels are reduced 2 years, according to my point. And the newer point that you pointed out is at least 12 months prior, which is 1 year. Therefore, we do not use any of the testosterone levels in or during the competition. It is already regulated even before the year. We only test it during the competition and before the competition. Therefore, I don't find any reasons, and I'm saying that there is no confirmation that the women as well won't take dopes, and they have many cases that have been taking dopes, right? I'm pretty sure you have heard cases that they have been doping up, taking steroids, taking muscle augmenting serums and stuff and more. Before that, next I would like to talk about my house's arguments. First off, which I already explained, the women rights where the transgenders are always shunned upon and do not get included. And next is discrimination. This also plays a part that transgender women are always, or transgender people, the society is always shamed because they could not stay to their original biological gender or the one they were born with. Let me remind you, the reason why transgenders actually change into another, the original sex changes to a opposite sex is the reason because of biological and genetical disorders. This is the most prominent reason why transgenders, the transitioning of transgenders are increasing. This is the reason of health and genetic and prenatal disposition, which determines their sex. They are supposed to be born as female, but in terms of nature and stuff, it turns out they were not born as a female, but instead they do have female hormones in their body surging through. This makes them more weaker compared to the normal male and softer than the normal male. We have seen this by our own eyes in many real life instances. Therefore, I say the transitioning into women gives them a proper advantage. Yes, because this allows them to be more comfortable in their own field. This allows them to compete more further. This allows them to be comfortable with their own skin, with their own body, rather than not identifying them as a gender where they don't feel comfortable or equal to participate. And next up is representation, which I already explained during the scholarship part. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you, opposition. Yeah, when you're stating that allowing drugs or women are also taking the doping test, so are you telling that it's okay for women as well as other transgender people to take drugs? Because you are actually supporting the fact that saying that if transgender are taking, then also women are also taking. So what is the point there? So is drugs
Oh,
allowed in sports legally? That's what you
No.
stated just now.
I'm stating that not only transgenders are taking dopes. In your case, the transgenders are taking dopes more than females, right? I'm saying that females also take dopes, so it is unequal for both sides as well. Oh, okay. It is unequal for both. I'm not saying that I support the taking of doping, but I say the females also take dopes, which is unfair for the transgender women as well. Or it's actually unfair for everybody, the stakeholders in our motion, which are the participants, the transgenders, and the viewers of the sport. They feel cheated when they feel like the women are taking dopes as well as the transgenders. This does not make a fair play. I'm not saying I'm supporting the actions of doping, but I'm saying that this side also take dopes and this also takes dopes in case this is an example. What if they take dopes? Therefore, it's equal. Where both of them make mistakes, therefore, it is not considered as the only mistake the transgenders committing mistakes. And therefore, I'd like to reaffirm my stance or our house stance that we do not regret the participation or the entry of transgender in sports. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your speech. That's conclude the main speech of this debate. Now we will move on to the replying speech, where each team will summarize their main arguments and rebuttals in 4 minutes. Opposition side may start first.
For the basically summarize whatever has been the argument that has been given by team. Number one, transgender is not advantage to sports. They do not have any advantage in sports. And second argument was that transgender face a tremendous amount of discrimination, and that by allowing transgenders to take part in sports, they are actually becoming inspiration to other trans athletes, and they are also bringing they are also representing countries. They are giving recognition to their countries by participating in international level competitions. And I would like to rebut a few points where the government house failed to prove. They say that we do not prove enough statistics on the part that show that about the testosterone levels. But the question is that not only trans women, the notion of transgender girls having an unfair advantage. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I think I'm facing. I would like to continue. In this case, I would like to prove that not only of transgender face um sorry, but I would like to say that, but not only trans are the only girls with high testosterone levels, because an estimated amount of 10% of women have polycystic. Can y'all hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, you're just lagging. But yes, you're still here.
Okay. Which result in elevated testosterone levels. So in this case, it's totally unfair to transgender women because that they keep repeating that they have advantage. That is they transition into the gender, but that is not the only reason because inequality and discrimination, that where they feel, and they do not just only feel, where they also face biological differences. They face biological differences in certain situations where sports is not the only factor. So that is a bit unclear from their point. And I also totally agree that all of these scientific proven theories are on both sides are acceptable, because all of those scientific theories are yet to be confirmed, that only transgenders are able to go through all of those testosterone levels, where they have lower, they face unfairness in that situation. And last but not least, I would like to uh, ask the judge to take everything into consideration that has been proven by the opposition team. And I would like to thank the government house as well. Thank you. I reinstate our stand for today, that we do not support the motion where they state they regret that transgender shouldn't be allowed in sports. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the replying speech from the opposition side. Next, let's welcome the government side to deliver their replying speech. The time starts once you are ready.
Hello, testing. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A wise man once said that it is better to debate a question without settling it than to settle a question without debating it. Once again, Assalamu alaikum and greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I, as the first speaker, hold the responsibility to summarize this debate, to show why it should be in our favor of our side of the team. The reality that this point of view is debatable, we all know that, and there are continuing conversations concerning transgender inclusion in sports that should be noted. Right us right now, we are frequently raising issues with alleged advantages and disadvantages in competitive sports. Proponents of transgender inclusions frequently advocate for equal rights and opportunities. Transgender athletes' rights and experiences must be taken into account when discussing this issue. We have done that, as well as other people's concerns and point of views. Ladies and gentlemen, we have proven today, us in the government side, we have proven that we do in fact care about the transgenders' rights. We even provided a solution to them as well. It has already been stated well again. I'll state it again, ladies and gentlemen. The opposition side, they talk on how transgenders' rights are. They talk on transgenders' rights over and over again, and they had failed to consider the other genders as well. Yes, they have proved like they do care of the woman, but you fail to see the bigger picture here. The Prime Minister herself had also mentioned that there are no longer two genders, ladies and gentlemen. There are in fact already 72 genders. It's a new era, ladies and gentlemen. There's too much to count, and that's why we already mentioned this before. We already proposed a solution, ladies and gentlemen, which is to ask these transgender people to join the sports they were born with according to their own sex. Yes, you may join the sports, but according to your own birth sex. The world is already complicated, gentlemen. Let's not make it even more complicated. Points regarding the effects of transgender entering has already been presented enough well from both the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, such as unfairness towards women's sports, safety of women, chances of cis women to join sports to be diminished. Our third speaker has also reinstated and enhanced all of the points given by the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, and our facts are absolute. We also mentioned on how the opponent side are literally allowing drugs in sports just because you could do better somewhere else, just because you are physically better. Therefore, we clearly stand a chance to win this debate with confidence with these points. Let me reaffirm, ladies and gentlemen, that the House today supports today's motion, which is this House regrets the entry of transgender people into sports because we believe in equality for all. I repeat, we believe in equality for all and respecting one's rights. Basically, everyone. Allowing transgender individuals to compete in women's sports could create an unfair playing field. This has been mentioned more and more and more. And erode the spirit of competition. We already mentioned this. We already even talked about plenty more. As such, it is not a viable solution. Instead, we need to find a better way to promote equality. You want equality, you want inclusivity. We already promoted it. We already suggested it as well. You can promote equality and inclusivity in sports while ensuring that everyone can compete fairly and safely. Ladies and gentlemen, the opponents They have yet to prove that the safety of women are guaranteed. I talked about women being potentially harassed. They have not yet rebut that point until the end. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have no room in our hearts for hatred, literally. And frankly, we do not have time for tolerance. We respect your ideas, we respect what you want to be, but do not push it on everyone. Do not push your ideas on us, literally on everyone. So before I end my speech, I'd like to reinstate our stance again, which is we believe in all equal rights for everyone. And that is why today's motion should be accepted. With that, I rest my case.
All right, thank you to everyone present for making this debate session a success. That concludes today's debate session on topic This House regret the entries of transgender in sports. I would like to thank both teams for their excellent performance today. Now, give me some time to calculate overall marks and announce the winner of today's debate. A second. All right. Congratulations for both teams for success in this debate round. All right. First of all, I would like to compliment on both teams' improvement. I see a lot improvement from the opposition side as well, which you now I see that you are listening more and respond towards your opponent team points very good and well. And for the government team, congrats for your great speech as well as the opposition teams. I don't have much to comment here because both team really doing a great job. And congrats for engaging at the best with the POIs. And what I want to comment is just your time management and elaboration. Be aware of your time as always. 7 minutes, I know it's not enough, but then in the 7 minutes, you need to manage your time properly so that you can elaborate more points in your argument and elaborations. So, as for today's debate, our motion today is this house regrets the entries of transgender in sport, and the motion accepted. Congrats to the government team. As well, good job to the opposition team. With margin 2, it's just a slight margin. And the best debater for today's round is Amira Shamila. The motion today is accepted. So congratulations to the winning team for winning this debate, and well done to the losing team for putting up a good fight. That marks the end of our session. Thank you for your attentiveness and attention. Congrats both teams.
Thank you to the judge and congratulations to the government house.
Thank you. And
Thank you to
congrats.
the judge,
It
and
was
thank
quite
you
fun.
to the rest as well.
Thank
Yeah,
you
that
to
was
the
very
judge.
fun.
Thank you to the judge and the opponent team. You did well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
Okay, so is all the team in the main session.